This is a and the last lecture we looked at some of the functions and crew members that make up a movie. So we're going to look at the cinematographer and some of the roles that a cinematographer plays in movie production and some of the major things that he takes into consideration. And one of them is the fact that he takes cognizance of the cameras that he makes use of. That is a cinematographer in movie production. So we'll be looking at that now. And I also told us last time in our last lecture that the cinematographer, who is also a member of the crew, member of the crew, he does not only make mention, he does not only select the cameras he uses, he also take a look at the settings of his cameras. So let's look at the cinematographer's role when it comes to cameras, when it comes to the settings of his cameras. One of the things that we check in the settings of a camera is the ISO. We call it ISO, which is an international standard organization. The ISO is what helps the cinematographer to adjust his video quality in terms of the kind of light that comes into his camera and the kind of quality of light that enters into the image which he wants to shoot. So if he has been able to take cognizance of that, the cinematographer also tries his best to look at the resolution of the camera he wants to use. Try to look at the resolution of the camera he wants to use, and also make sure that everything he wants to do is intact in terms of the camera equipment. Another thing that we look at in terms of filmmaking, and also as part of role of the cinematographer, is that he tries to look at the movement of the cameras. If we're going to be shooting in a particular movie, what kind of location are we looking at, and what are the kind of camera equipment we need to make our movie smooth? So first thing first, we begin to look at the cameras. What kind of stand are we going to be using to mount our camera? Are we going to be using a dolly? A dolly is a kind of equipment that we mount cameras on that enables a cinematographer or a movie director move his camera from one location to another without having to move or distract the shot which he is taking. And if he is able to do that, it means he will be able to take a standard steady shot with a tripod. Another thing he uses is we also have what we also call the dolly. The dolly is an equipment that the cinematographer uses in terms of mounting the equipment, mounting his camera on, a dolly. A dolly is a movable track equipment that allows a movie director or a film producer on top of our wires on the evolving role of digital imaging technicians. After finally setting camera and choosing a lens, it is time to start planning a shot. And the shot in movie production is the basic thing. It's a major thing that we need in movie production and also in film production. So when you have your cameras, the cinematographer or the DOP tries to make sure that the camera is mounted on a particular stand to make sure that that product, or to make sure that that movie doesn't have constant shaking, constant moving of the hands. So the cinematographer says, taking a look at a cinematographer will have a good grasp on what the director is actually envisioning. Now, one of the many benefits of having storyboard is seeing the listed camera movement and the director's notes. So each time a movie is about to be shot, the storyboard tells the cinematographer what is required. What kind of movement is required in this kind of shot? What kind of shot are we going to take in this kind of scene? If you're taking a shot that has to do with, a moving object that is running in a speed, then you need to bring equipment that can allow you do that. And one of those equipment is the crane. We have crane. Apart from having crane, we also have the dolly. Now, if we look at this line here, we say a dolly is a typically flat platform with wheels that travels along a set of tracks. A camera operator then rides on the dolly to capture smooth movement, often used to capture tracking shots. Now, tracking shot has to do with, for example, taking a shot that has to do with race or a race car. We've watched Fast and Furious. Fast and Furious is a movie that deals more with car race, movement of vehicles in high speed. We use dolly to achieve that. Now, I've also looked at films or movies like 300. Now, I'm bringing all of these movies because we're talking about movies. Look at 300, for example. 300 is a movie that is, how do I put it now? It's an epic movie. Apart from it being epic, it has to do with movement of a lot of people in terms of, their swording, the way they fight. Now, if a cinematographer has a good knowledge of the kind of movie he wants to produce, he begins to look at what kind of equipment. A dolly is one of the equipment that a cinematographer looks. And a dolly doesn't always have to be an expensive chart on rails. In fact, many creative cinematographers build their own with tools that they have available. So a dolly is something that you can create. You can either create a dolly using, sitting on top of a vehicle while the cameraman mounts himself sitting on the window of the car. As the car is moving, the actors are moving. You can see the cameraman also moving with the car, with the actors. Now, that is an improvised dolly. It's an improvised dolly because if you don't have the dolly at hand, you can improvise. And I'm telling you, one of the ways you can improvise a dolly is sitting on the window of a moving vehicle and gradually following the actors as they act or as they run. But make sure as a cameraman that you have a steady shot, because if you are taking that kind of shot and your camera is shaking, you will not allow people not really enjoy that movie. So it's something that we also bear in mind. The term to dolly refers to moving directly towards or away from the subject. So that is why it's called a dolly. You are moving towards an object or you're running away from an object. The essence of it is to capture the movement of that character, that subject that that is acting that scene at that moment. The dolly allows you to zoom in and zoom out. Unlike zooming, the focal length of lenses does not change. It is the camera itself that moves in and out. So your lens is steady, but the camera moves, meaning that you have your lens already focused on your character, on your actors, but you allow the camera to move either closer to them or you're moving far from them just to get a clearer picture. Sometimes we move close to get a good audio of what they are saying. Another thing that we also look at is in a cinematography, in terms of camera movement, is we look at the crane, which is the next point we're looking at now. The crane, speaking of cranes, the crane is another camera gear stable. A camera is placed on a crane or a GIP or a jeep to frame characters from high above and from far away. So this is another thing that we also have in mind that we also use when it comes to camera movements. We have the tripod, which I mentioned before. The tripod is a normal one, the conventional one that we just mount our camera on, and we are standing behind the tripod, making sure that it doesn't move. There is no movement in the camera shot. The second thing is we have what we call the dolly. And I said the dolly is a moving track which a cinematographer uses to track a moving subject. And we also mentioned the fact that a dolly allows a cinematographer move closer or move away from a subject, giving him a clearer picture and a sound audio of his characters that are already acting. Now, the next stand which we use again for movement is the crane. Now the crane is another camera gear stable. A camera is placed on top of the crane or a jeep to frame characters from high above or from far away. Now most times if we're looking at movies that have to do with crowd, crowded movies where we have a large crowd of actors who are going to be involved. Now we can see the movement of crane there. Crane has to be used to give us an overview of this multitude from the high level. Now, a lot of us might not know what a crane is. A crane, for example, if you've been to experience, the organizers of experience, they use crane to give us a view of the kind of crowd that attended that program every year in experience. Now, if you have a closer look at such movement, you discover that the crane moves, either it moves up, forward, or it moves backward. Either it moves to the left or it moves to the right. All it's trying to do is to give you a picture of the large multitude of people that are attending such a program or that are acting such movies. And we've seen that also in Jennifer Diary. I think she have used it in her episodes. In one or two of her episodes, were in the use of crane in such movies, and it enables the audience, the viewers, to have an overview of, either you're giving us a landscape view or you're giving us an overview of the landmass which the movie is being acted upon. That is a crane, and the essence of it is to frame characters. Framing of characters. There are hundreds of different types of cranes.
Mr. Fortune, if you can still hear me, you're offline. We cannot hear you again. Mr. Fortune, if you can hear me, you're not audible. We can't hear you. Chinedu Philip, please unmute yourself. I want to confirm if you can hear your lecturer. Chinedu, please, can you hear him? Chinedu, can you hear your lecturer?
Yes, I can hear you, sir.
Can you hear your lecturer?
Yes, no, I can't hear him. I can't hear him at all.
At all. All right. Can I go?
Yes, go on, but please share your screen, share your material. Hello. Hello. Please, let's be patient for our lecturer. Mr. Fortune, we cannot hear you. You are muted. Please unmute yourself. You are muted. Mr. Fortune, you are muted. Please unmute yourself if you can hear me.
All right, can you hear me now?
Yes, yes. So share your material. Share your material now.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
All
But
right.
share your
So
material.
the next thing we'll be looking at is a Steadicam. I have mentioned. All right, I've started the lecture. It's shared already. I have mentioned three things that we use for steady shots in movie production. The first one is the tripod. The second one I mentioned is uh, the second one I mentioned is the crane. The fourth one I mentioned is a dolly. Now the last one we're looking at is a Steadicam. The Steadicam is also a stabilizing device or equipment that is handheld, but this one is mounted on a tripod and is capable of holding a camera and a dolly.
Mr. Fortune, we can't hear you. I guess you're offline again. We cannot hear you. Please let's be patient. Let's patiently wait for our lecturer. He will join us soon. We're so sorry for the inconvenience. Please let's wait for our lecturer. Please be patient. I'm still here. I'm still waiting for your lecture. As soon as it comes back, he will join us. Thank you. Please exercise patience, please. I'm so sorry. I guess we have to end the class now because his time is almost up. He has just 2 minutes more and he's not back online. So we're so sorry. We hope next class will not be like this. I definitely believe next class will not be like this. So please forgive us for, I hope for the little two he took you, you're able to gain something. But he will make up for next in his next class. Thank you. God bless you and stay safe. Goodbye.